Hi everyone. Good morning to those joining us from Victoria and Australia. Good evening to those who, like myself, are joining from the UK. And good afternoon to our speaker Stacia, who is joining us from LA. Great to have all of you across multiple time zones joining us. I'm Catherine. I'm the Chief Executive of the Australia-UK Chamber of Commerce in London, and it's my pleasure to be chairing this session on accessing the UK's beauty and personal care market via e-com. I'd like to give a really warm welcome to each of you. Thanks so much for logging in today. Before we get started, I'd like to give a big thanks to the Victorian Government and the Office of the Agent General here in London for your partnership and support of this joint event. We always love working with Victoria. They're such a proactive and switched on team, really committed to supporting Victorian companies to build exceptional links into the UK. Thank you very much to Agent General Tim Dillon and his team at Global Victoria, including Katie and Ellen, for your collaboration with the Chamber and with our community. Well, it's been an extraordinary and challenging time for everyone this year. COVID-19 has changed the way we live, work, and indeed shop. The change has really been quite extraordinary. A study by the UN released earlier this month, surveying close to 4,000 consumers across 9 countries, found that more than half those surveyed shop online more frequently, with cosmetics and personal care among the biggest growth categories. In the UK, forecasts predict that consumers will spend £141 billion online in 2020, which is up around 35% more than last year. While much of that, of course, is going to be driven by lockdown, the last 7 months have been a time in which people, including those that may have never shopped online before, have developed new shopping habits likely to last beyond COVID-19. And it's for that reason that it's going to be crucial that companies put e-com at the heart of their business strategies. And indeed, this growth of online opens up greater opportunities for agile Aussie companies to do business in far-flung places like the UK, more opportunity than ever before. In this session, we're really lucky to have 3 expert speakers to share their advice on how to enter and operate in the UK via e-com. We'll first be hearing from Gilly Waddle, founder and managing director for Fuel PR, with some practical guidance for you on UK entry, including ensuring your product, processes, and brand are market ready. We'll then hear from Stacia Prince, international buying director at major platform Cult Beauty, on their strategy in working with new brands. And then finally, we're going to be hearing from someone who has successfully made the journey into the UK, as well as a number of other international markets, all from a birthplace in Victoria. Sarah Hamilton, co-founder of Victorian companies Sand and Sky and Bella Box. We'll be taking questions from you guys, from our audience throughout the session. So please do ask or upvote any questions via the Q&A box, which is at the bottom of your screen as we go along. Before we get to our speakers, however, I'm pleased to first hand the screen to Tim Dillon, Victorian Agent General for the UK and Europe, to provide some opening remarks. Thank you very much, Tim.
Thanks very much, Catherine, and likewise, a big thank you to you and your team at the Australia-UK Chamber of Commerce. You've done a fantastic job and you're a fantastic asset for Australian companies and indeed Victorian companies looking to enter the UK. I'd also like to acknowledge our specialists and experts talking tonight, Gillian, Stacia, and our very own amazing Sarah Hamilton from Victoria. I think the time you're spending to share your knowledge and experience with us will be very valuable for our companies. And it's also great to be joined by so many Victorian companies. Looking over the attendees list, I can see a number of very familiar names that I got to know in my previous postings, most recently in China, but prior to that in Southeast Asia and also Japan. Obviously, living in China, the world's biggest e-commerce market, and dealing with many of you there, you've gained a lot of experience, and I think it's probably helped you adapt to entering new markets and the challenges that you face there. I know our speakers tonight will be talking about some of the challenges, and although maybe the regulatory burdens are more transparent here in the UK. Nonetheless, they are there and they're onerous. And I know our speakers will touch on that, but I'll encourage you to look carefully into that. Having recently arrived in the UK in the midst of the pandemic, it's one thing I've noted, and as Catherine rightly pointed out, is the rapid uptake of digital transformation and the use of digital technologies and the use of online platforms to sell products. It's absolutely booming over here, and I get the same sort of sense that I felt when I was first in China 5 years ago, and it was taking off in a big way then, that it's happening again now here in the UK. The other thing that's I think works in our favour is that the UK and Australia recently launched their free trade agreement negotiations, and both our respective governments are committed to strengthening our partnerships in technology, innovation and research and development, and seeking best practice rules in digital trade. This will create more certain and secure online environments for Australian businesses to do business over here. So I think that's something that I'm seeing a lot of goodwill towards Australia coming out of this. You've got the unknown of Brexit as well, and that will, I think, present opportunities and challenges alike. But nevertheless, I think it emphasises to the UK the importance of traditional trading partners and allies such as Victoria. I won't talk too much because I know you want to hear from the exports, but you may be aware that the Victorian government recently announced $15.7 million towards export recovery packages funding to address the issues caused by the COVID pandemic and to help companies establish new export markets. Part of this funding will go directly to assist businesses adapt their export strategies to respond to the rapidly changing global market, with a focus on e-commerce opportunities. So if you haven't already, I would encourage you to jump on the Global Victoria website and register your interest in the export recovery package. It should be easy to find on that website. By doing that, you'll be kept up to date with the latest programs and announcements, some of which will launch very shortly. So in summary, this is a great opportunity to potentially receive support, not only from the Victorian government, but to meet key contacts in the market and learn from their experience and advice. Our colleagues in Melbourne are here to support you. I should do a shout out to George Descala and Lizzie Moffat and the team that's helped organise this from the Melbourne end, as well as our team in London, and great work by Katie Vandenbos and Ellen Walsh for working and putting this on. So get in touch if we can help you. And again, want to thank Catherine and the Chamber and our guest speakers for their involvement today. So thanks very much. Over to you, Catherine.
Thanks very much, Tim, and absolutely reciprocated. Great to be working with Victoria. I'm now pleased to introduce our first speaker, Gilly Waddle, who, as I mentioned, is the founder and MD for Fuel PR and Fuel for Amazon. Gilly has an incredible track record here in the UK in working with clients who are launching their brands here, including those working with platforms like Amazon. We're delighted to have her here with us. Gilly, over to you.
Hello, everybody. Thank you very much for the opportunity to be with you tonight, and thank you very much to everybody who's joining. I've got a short presentation which I'm going to start running through now, and I think it's just about to be flagged up. There are 4 main sections to it. If we just kick off, it's very much been put together as a practical guide for you to think about launching here in the UK. And I've divided into getting started, looking at your brand offer, some touchstones on the UK retail environment, and then thinking about consumers, and then ending with just perhaps a little list of some thoughts for you to take away. The most important thing, if we just move on, please, is, as Tim has alluded to, is the regulatory environment. I'm sure you're all aware of the Brexit discussions that have been taking place. As of the 1st of January, the UK will no longer be part and parcel of the EU, and in fact we are no longer part of the EU now, which means that if you're planning to launch in the UK, you will need to think about how you're going to handle that from a regulatory point of view from the UK and Northern Ireland, and then from Southern Ireland, which encompasses or is still part of the rest of Europe. There are 2 particular things that you are going to have to think about. One are the claims that you are going to want to make for your products in making sure that you're compliant with the regulatory environment. There are 5 particular steps that you will need to go through, which we can certainly help you with afterwards or at a later date. And the second thing that you are going to have to think about is whether or not you've got a responsible person here in the UK, which is mandatory and a requirement, not just for the UK, but also for Europe. Again, it's quite a complicated issue for you to consider. It needs to be considered well in advance, and we'd be delighted to help you. All the retailers are increasingly focused on compliance and they do rigorous checks. So it is something that is mandatory. The second thing that you'll want to think about is planning and preparation. Quick heads up here, normally regulatory will take you at least 4 to 6 months to make sure that you've gone through the necessary paperwork, the safety checks, the notification onto the correct portals, the audits that are required. We normally advise brands who are coming to the UK to think ahead in terms of probably a good 9 months to a year, not least because you'll want to consider some of the listings that the e-commerce retailers and indeed bricks and mortar have signposted during the calendar year, and it's useful to take account of that. Plus, you'll want to look at what resources you're going to need in terms of shipping, logistics, manufacturing, sales, marketing, management, and of course, gathering information about the UK in terms of insights, information. This, although we have twice the population you have, and it's a small country, it's notoriously competitive and tough. I would say the UK is a tough market. Plus, of course, there are various issues that you might want to consider well in advance. As brand owners, one of the things that you will be most excited about, and we here in the UK have been for a long time, is very excited by so many Australian brands and their differentiating propositions that they have to offer us. You're ahead of the game, leading edge in many cases, with uniquely exciting and provocative and innovative brands. So you'll want to think about how you maximize your differentiators, who you're targeting, what your competitors are, do you know who their equivalents are you ready to go, have you got MPD, all these sorts of things that you'll want to consider in advance in order to make sure that you're using your resources as cost effectively and as efficiently, given that you are, of course, really quite a long way away. The UK retail environment, it is tricky. It's geographically challenging. We are based here in central London. There is huge demand, huge growth here. Bricks and mortar are, of course, very important, but Amazon and all the e-commerce retailers are increasingly exciting, growing rapidly, and I'm looking forward very much to hearing what Stacey's got to say. Defining your distribution will be very important for you, because each channel you choose to go down will require a very specific strategy for you to think about and for you to implement in due course. I don't know how much any of you will know about Amazon. It's notoriously a very frustrating channel for people to work with, and we certainly have got many clients who have been brought to their knees by trying to have a successful growth-orientated relationship with Amazon. We have an Amazon brand practice here, and again, it's something that we can help you with, irrespective of whether you're a seller or a vendor. I'm delighted to take some questions about this later. But again, you'll have to have an impactful, exciting offer, and you'll also want to think about what you're doing offline as well as what you're doing within the Amazon marketplace specifically. My last slide is really about your consumer audiences. How are you going to engage with them? What sort of impact are you looking to achieve? How are you going to harness social media, bloggers? Of course, again, in Australia, you are very advanced in this, and we have many things to learn from some of the techniques you've used here. But again, making sure that your brand is noticed, it's the one to watch, it's got sharp elbows, it's sustainable, and exciting and motivating are all considerations for you. And there will be a number of people who, all of the people on this webinar would be delighted to help you introduce you with. Finally, being practical, it always comes down to making sure you've ticked all the boxes. So having a launch plan, making sure your compliance checks are signed off and agreed, considering advanced research and audit data, looking at how you're going to drive listings, finalising P&Ls, perhaps making a 5-year business plan, adjusting materials you've already got so that you can start to build a global brand, not just here in the UK, but in different sorts of European markets, and activating a promotional plan for launch so that you achieve the biggest impact you can and make the best use of your resources. Very happy to take questions at the end of all of this. Thank you very much for your time and attention.
Well, thank you so much, Gilly. A really comprehensive presentation that I know we ran through that you ran through at a whistle-stop pace. So I'm sure that we'll be able to come back and have quite a fulsome Q&A session after we've heard from Stacia. So audience, please do get those questions coming in. I know we've had 1 or 2 come in already. Do get typing. We're going to move straight on to Stacia Prince, who is the International Buying Director for Cult Beauty. And then we will have some time, as I say, for Q&A with both Stacia and Gilly. So do send your questions in. Stacia has been in beauty buying for 30 years, and she joined Cult Beauty around the time of its inception in 2008. So she has a wealth of experience. Cult Beauty, as I'm sure many of you will know, has been the UK launchpad for many hero brands and products in the last 12 years. So it's brilliant to have her here with us. Welcome, Stacia.
Thank you so much, Catherine, and thank you for asking me to be part of this really lovely event. And I'm sorry for those of you that are up late, just to accommodate the time zones in other parts of the world. I mean, Gilly did an amazing presentation. I'm embarrassed to say I have no slides, and she's also covered really very much of what I would have been saying, so I'm thrilled she went first. I suppose, let me speak specifically about Cult Beauty. We're a pure e-commerce site. Our mission is to scour the world, looking for the best that there is in the world of beauty. As Catherine referenced earlier, 2020 has been the most extraordinary year, sadly, in a terrible way. The one good thing that has come out of it is obviously the shift to e-commerce shopping. And so while it pains us that others lost while we benefited, it has been an amazing year for us, and a year where we've really seen a seismic shift in category presentation. Skincare has been enormous, well-being has been incredible, seeing the most amazing growth, hair care, anything that people would ordinarily have done at the salon, but they're now doing at home, has seen, exponential increase in sales. Sarah is one of our suppliers. We scoured the world and found Sand and Sky, and we're thrilled that we did. We actually focused on Australian beauty, or A-beauty as we called it. I think about 3 years ago, I could just see some really interesting brands coming out, and we have retained some of them, not all of them sadly, but we have retained some of them. For me, and for my team, the big thing is that you know your own brand. I mean, it's just the most important thing, that you know the category that you sit in, you're very aware of the competition. When you're looking at the retailers that you think are the right fit for you, study their entire portfolio, make sure that effectively you're on the shelf with brands that you would be happy to be keeping company with. And when you are pitching your brand, and there are various routes which I'll come to shortly, just make sure that what you're saying you can really stand by. So, don't use hyperbole if none is needed. Don't say you're the only brand doing something if indeed you are not. The way to get attention is obviously having a very visually impactful presentation. Sadly, meeting in person is not an option at the moment. And just be true and let the passion for your brand shine through. For us, you can reach us in various ways. We have a new product email. I'm very happy at the end of this to give you my personal email. you can contact us via any of our social platforms, and I can assure you that it all gets to us. And we do answer, and I promise review every single brand that's presented to us. Not everything is right, but that's inevitable. As I say, if you've really done your homework and you find a retailer that you think suited to you, I think another piece of advice that I would give you is just know what your capability is. I mean, Gilly has touched upon, you know, what you need to be ready for the UK, EU, as far as retailing, but just know what resources you've got financially, human resources, time, and make sure that you are equipped to deal with the hope that success will ensue, that you're ready for it. You know, if it grows organically, sometimes that's the healthiest way. So just don't be lured by a big first purchase order or big numbers if you don't think you're ready. Don't be scared to say no to people if you don't think you're ready for them. I think that's really my, I really think that's really most of the advice I'd like to give you. Just to touch upon the regulatory piece, I see one of the questions that's come through is, does everything have to be registered for the EU? And if it's a topical product, then it absolutely does have to be. It's not as arduous or expensive a process as some people think it is. If you are tenacious, it can be quite quick. And if you're a good negotiator, it doesn't have to be hugely expensive. And there are many very reputable agencies that you can do it with. But what I will say is any retailer in the UK or EU who is a reputable retailer will not enter into any sort of relationship with you until you are registered. So if you are at the cusp of starting your brands, then think globally. And if you are already an established brand, before you approach anybody, make sure that you've got that in your pipe of to-dos. I think that's more or less everything I have to say.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Stacia. And I think that provides us a great grounding for some Q&A now with yourself and with Gilly, who we will welcome back onto screen as well.
Hello.
Hi, Gilly. Welcome back.
Hello. 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 Hi.
So thank you both so much for your remarks. I think we've covered a lot of ground and we've had quite a few questions come through already. I might start with a question for you, Gilly, or a couple of questions for you. So we've had a question here touching on the points you made in relation to Amazon and working with Amazon, some of the points of friction or difficulties there. Would you just be able to elaborate a little bit more on what those are? And actually also, I mean, we've just heard from Stacia in relation to Cult Beauty and their approach. It'd be great to hear your thoughts on what the sort of platform landscape looks like in the UK, in addition to Cult Beauty and Amazon, and how companies should navigate their way through the various platforms that are potentially available to them here in the UK.
Stacey, do you want to start?
Sorry, I thought that Catherine had addressed the questions to you. So,
well, let me start by talking a little bit about Amazon. I mean, one of the things that differentiates Amazon from other people is it is very difficult to have a relationship. It's very difficult to speak to somebody like Stacia. It's largely a faceless organization. It's rapidly growing, which makes it very exciting for everybody. But there are many hurdles and barriers and techniques that you need to harness if you want to do well on Amazon. Okay, actually working with Amazon can be surprisingly easy, and it offers you many logistical advantages, particularly using FBA, which many people find particularly cost efficient and effective. Okay. But the different sorts of accounts that you might have, whether or not you want to have a brand building presence, whether or not you want to have a brand store, all these sorts of things will obviously be something that you need to consider in advance, and you need to go carefully with Amazon, because if you get it wrong, you can get blocked. And from there is no comeback. So it's better to do nothing and have a proper conversation and very considered strategy rather than jumping in, because we certainly have had clients who have found that credit cards that have been used by ex-employees have adjusted to algorithms that have made it almost impossible and taken a year or two to recover from, if it is ever recoverable from. So before you think about Amazon, try to talk to somebody. We have an expert called Julian. You're very welcome to ring him afterwards. And people like him will help you prepare your thoughts in terms of being retail ready for Amazon, and prepare the brand assets that you will need in order to perform well on it, coupled then with an advertising and promotional strategy in terms of the Amazon ecosystem online, never mind whatever you're going to do offline.
Thanks, Gilly. And could you perhaps also just make some comment on how you see the broader platform ecosystem in the UK, and how you recommend that Victorian companies that are looking at entering the virtual market in the UK or the digital market in the UK navigate that?
Well, the e-commerce market here is terribly exciting. I mean, bricks and mortar is struggling, not least because, the COVID situation has obviously made a huge impact. And you're absolutely right. The growth here from e-commerce point of view has changed things dramatically, and people are choosing to go online to buy anything from Inco products through to lipstick that perhaps they never chose to do before. And I doubt whether they will go back, because e-commerce is so exciting and the delivery points are so quick. You literally can, with Amazon Prime and with many other e-commerce retailers, get the products within hours. And of course, the convenience factor as we go into probably a second lockdown means that people's habits will be forever changed.
Thanks,
So
Gilly.
can I just add one thing I think I touched upon it earlier, but I think something that's really crucial is that you really do your homework before you identify who you think are potentially good retail partners for you. A lot of the e-commerce sites, and obviously I'm here representing Cult Beauty, and I think we are the best e-commerce site in the UK, but there are a lot that are doing a fabulous job. Some of them are really merely transactional and very promotionally based, so decide if that's the right fit for your brand. Some are super luxury, so you have to decide if that's the right fit for your brand. So I would say the other thing, and if this pandemic has taught us anything, I feel like the beauty industry has become closer and, should we say, a little nicer to each other. That I feel like there's a lot more empathy and support. So speak to other brands. If you see a brand is on a website or any retailer that you think is attractive to you, just try and reach out to them, find out what their experience is, but really do your research before you start approaching.
That's great advice, Stacia. So Stacia, I am now going to actually turn to you and ask some questions that we've received in relation to some of the products and brands that Cult Beauty is stocking and that it wants to work with in the future. So we have a couple of questions here. One is, do you see any gaps in the beauty and personal care market? Are there any products you'd like to see more of, particularly in relation to Cult Beauty? And also, I think an interrelated question, which is, since COVID, what are your best selling categories or products?
Yeah, as I said earlier, we consider everything. We do cover virtually all categories. What I am most looking for, is there white gap? Brutally speaking, no. We've got everything, but is there room for more? Of course there is. And if you're innovative and you've got a unique ingredient, delivery system, anything that we can just say is unique to you, then it's exciting. The areas that I said earlier that have really come to the fore is particularly skincare, hair care and well-being, and they're the categories that we're really focusing on. The trends that we're looking at for next year are very much protection, and by that I mean we're looking at emotional protection. We're looking at a category called emotherapy, the use of aromatherapy to really lift one's mood and perhaps with a modern twist to it. We're looking at home body beautiful. A lot of people are at home a lot more than they used to be, and how do you make your environment safe and welcoming and good for you? So home fragrance is a hugely growing area, bath and body. So anything that just makes you feel better. And then skincare. And within skincare, I think what we're going to try and really build next year, although travel is something that I'm sure will be minimized for most people, is still sun care. And I know that Australia comes out with the most fabulous sun care. And so that's something we're looking at, because even though people are at home, more and more people are using their gardens as an extension of their home, and it's their holiday. So we definitely are looking at sun care, skincare and well-being.
Really interesting to hear about that sort of holistic focus. And I was reading a report on ecom from McKinsey earlier today, and they referred to this sort of set of growth categories as the homebody economy, which I kind of loved. But, very interesting to see brands like IKEA actually on a tear here in the UK and Europe, expanding at a rate of knots, and certainly aligns with some of the comments that you've made there. We have another question about Amazon for you, Stacia, which I suppose is really around platform differentiation and goes to the comments you made earlier around brands and companies really needing to think about what their brand will be in a new market and what platforms they therefore want to partner and align themselves with. But I suppose this really goes more to what Cult Beauty's strategy is in relation to retaining and building its own brand. So someone asked, which companies or brands would be more suitable for Amazon versus a specialized platform like Cult Beauty? And does having your own e-commerce website in the UK or selling on Amazon impact your chances of being accepted onto a platform like Cult Beauty? In other words, just if a brand is already working with platforms that are perhaps not on brand for Cult Beauty, does that interfere with their chance to partner with you?
Yeah, I mean, as any good retailer, we're always looking for an exclusive. I mean, that is fundamentally the biggest driver for us. If we can do a launch and we can have a brand for 6 months, a year, then obviously that's the most attractive proposition. It gives us a chance to build it, to really own it. It comes back to what I was saying earlier. The things that I look at are not just how widely distributed, but what other platforms it is on. And I do have to say that Amazon is a slight bone of contention for me, purely because very often it is promotionally driven. So, if there is parity in pricing, it's not so much of a worry. I feel like there's a reason Amazon have never managed to really do luxury beauty very, very well. And I think is it because it is purely a transactional site, and oh my God, an amazing transactional site, but it is purely transactional. So if people want that experience of education, of like some just really beautiful content, and I don't think that, they're going to be the Amazon shopper for beauty, apart from now, obviously, the convenience part, although we do ship very quickly. So I can't say that Amazon isn't. If I really, really want a brand, the answer is if you're on Amazon, I'm still going to talk to you. But it can be a little bit of a stumbling block for me. But it's not on its own. There are others as well.
Mm-hmm. That's great. Thank you, Stacia. That's, I think, really, really helpful. And interesting to hear your points around the convenience versus customer service, because I think digital platforms and brands that are selling digitally are going to have to get really good at customer experience, because stores and the high street in the UK are headed the opposite direction of online.
If I can, just something that's happened since yesterday is here in the US, Sephora has gone on to Instacart, which means that you can shop and get your delivery within 2 hours.
Wow.
So, there is definitely that need for immediacy,
yes.
Of course, particularly with the rise in the need for essentials. But it outweighs, as you say, the experience. Amazon do not have a concierge service. They don't have a live customer service person at the end of the phone that will answer anything for you. It's a different thing. All sorts for all sorts.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we're going to shortly hear from Sarah Hamilton, who, of course, is a founder and someone who has come into the UK herself with Sand & Sky. So we'll be getting her perspective on some of the topics we've covered here. But before we do, I know you've both touched on the sheer weight and complexity associated with compliance for Australian entrants into the UK market. I do have to ask a question. Well, I'm going to ask two questions. One is around, do you think that Brexit will have any implications for that regulatory burden? Yes, no, potentially, we'll have to wait and see, is a perfectly acceptable answer as well. And then a second question, just ahead of Sarah coming online, is how do you think Australian brands are perceived in the UK? And is pushing forward their Australian identity a good strategy, or does it just really depend on company by company? So Gilly, can I come to you first on that, please?
Yes, you can. I'm just putting in my charger. I'm so sorry, I'm about to run out of power. I don't think the regulatory environment is going to change dramatically over the next 2 years because we are in a period of flux. But as Stacia says, the regulatory environment here is mandatory and there is no two ways getting away from it. The variations in the European market will vary according to country, but overall the rules right across the UK and Europe are the same, and you can be largely sure that they are going to probably stay in place for the next 20 months, okay? Again, Stacey is absolutely right. Everybody requires adherence to the regulatory environment, and particularly if you are making medical or healthcare claims, you have to be sure that you can back them up, and you must allow for the time involved, and you will need a responsible person or function here, not just in the UK and Northern Ireland, but also across Southern Ireland and across Europe. And actually, we do that actually already for some Australian companies, but it is mandatory, and the law is not going to be relaxed on that. It may change slightly, but not for some time.
Thanks, Gilly. And just your perspective as well on how Australian brands fare and are perceived in the UK?
I think they're terribly exciting. I mean, it's exactly as they said, some of them are so visually vibrant, so innovative, particularly in the skincare, sun care market, where, you know, you've got particular sort of weather conditions that we don't have here. But they are very innovative, exciting products, and UK consumers want those. And in fact, UK retailers have for some time been not perhaps as quick off the blocks as they could have been in terms of welcoming those advanced products and all the different sorts of technologies and benefits that they offer to UK consumers, and particularly in the southern part of England where we are. I think UK consumers are increasingly well educated and receptive to international brands, particularly from places like Australia.
Thanks, Gilly. And Stacia, your perspectives on those two questions.
So the first one with compliancy, in a recent conversation that I had with one of the big agencies, they said that at the moment, they were thinking that for the next 5 years, the only change was going to be that, which has already come into play, is that you have to have two responsible parties on your packaging. So an address in the UK and an address in the EU, but that the UK would still be working with EU cosmetic regulations for the next 5 years. Now, as with anything in the world, that could change. So I really don't think there is going to be this huge onus. What we can't say is what's going to happen post that 5 years. I think that the UK and EU will always be hand in hand with their stringency as far as ingredients, but I don't know whether people will have to redo the whole exercise. So I would just say, if you're going to do it and you're doing it now, let's do it now and not worry about the next 5 years. I think that's how we have to live our life anyway. With regards to Australia, yeah, I mean, look, I've been excited about Australia for a long time. And as I say, that's why we started talking about A-Beauty. I think what makes Australian products so interesting, as Gilly said, is the aspirational, carefree, fabulous, outdoorsy lifestyle that most Australians experience. And I think that's always something very appealing to a UK customer. I think indigenous ingredients, you know, when there's that use of just like really beautiful homegrown ingredients, I think that's really exciting as well. And yeah, I mean, any innovation. I think we're looking very closely next year as well at what we're calling ancestral beauty. That's really like relevant, modern, up to date, but that using just folklore from many years ago, which, you know, the best way of describing it, which I think there were so many Australian brands that marry those two. So yeah, happy to look at everything that Australia has to offer.
Brilliant. Thank you, Stacia, and thank you, Gilly. And Stacia, I think you've provided us a wonderful segue to introduce Sarah Hamilton next, because I think her product and company, Sand & Sky, really exemplifies some of those traits that you were speaking about in relation to Australian companies: Indigenous ingredients, bright, vibrant packaging, and definitely aspirational in all those ways you described. And I know also stocked on cult beauty, so it's a nice fit. Thank you very much, Gilly. Thank you very much, Stacia. We are now going to have a conversation with Sarah Hamilton, so I will say goodbye to you guys.
Right.
And welcome to Sarah, who is the co-founder of Bella Box, launched in 2011, and Sand & Sky, which was launched a couple of years ago. It's the original Aussie pink clay mask that went viral upon release with rave online reviews and waiting lists galore. Sand & Sky is now sold online via Cult Beauty, ASOS and Amazon in bricks and mortar, and also in bricks and mortar stores, including Selfridges and Harvey Nicks in the UK. And we were just speaking earlier, Sarah and I, before this event, and she tells me that to date, Sand & Sky have sold more than 2 million units globally, which is just incredible, with a very strong share here in the UK. So hi, Sarah, welcome, great to have you.
Hi. Thank you, lovely to, I can't see anyone, but I hope you can hear me and my video's okay.
Yes, we can see and hear you perfectly. So it sounds like it's been an incredibly busy time for you in the last 7 months.
Yes, I was saying I've had 2 COVID cries, and definitely I think April and May were our busiest months that we've ever had, and we typically have a really big Black Friday, Cyber Monday campaign, so they're normally the winners in terms of months and revenue, but definitely April and May, I've never seen anything like it. I think we were paralysed almost at the start of COVID. So when the lockdown started happening, and especially in the UK, we had some of our physical retailers that started pulling purchase orders, like we're cancelling purchase orders. And it went from, oh my gosh, you know, what's going to happen to our business, to waking up to sales absolutely spiking as people really moved to skincare and self-care and trying to treat themselves while they were in lockdown. So it's been nuts.
Well, congratulations on building such a thriving business, albeit I'm sure it's come with a lot of blood, sweat and tears, but congratulations on the journey so far. And just to kind of elaborate on what I said in relation to your presence in the UK, what is your current distribution in terms of like how much revenue you're taking from the UK and Europe in comparison to other markets? Not revenue necessarily.
So at the moment, yeah, I actually just looked at the figures. So we are, because we discussed it earlier. So we're actually 40% in the US, and then I think we're 20, sorry, I should have written it down, 30% in Australia, and then also 30% in UK and EU and some smaller markets. So it's always been quite big for us. We entered retail, our first retail relationship came out of the UK, and the UK retailers were actually the first to come and find us. So well done, Stacia and team. We, you know, it was interesting to see. The US was definitely sort of 2 months behind the UK, but I would say within a week, we got approached by quite a few retailers in the UK, and we were just blown away. Did not expect it. So yes, we're on Amazon. And I found that discussion very interesting about Amazon. And then, but we still do majority of our sales in the UK and EU market through our own website. And that's how the company has been structured. We love our partnerships with retailers. We actually really love Amazon, and we've had an all right time with them. But we look at everything as a, you know, as an additional channel, I suppose. But our website is the strongest, so that we can always maintain the relationship with our customers.
Yeah. So you guys started as very much a digital native brand. You were very digitally led, and that along with, you know, a fantastic product enabled you to very quickly go viral globally. What were some of the earliest touch points in your digital strategy?
So we were big into influencers, but because we really started the brand on a shoestring budget, it was like, the much talked about micro influencers was something that was always a big part of our strategy because that's all we could afford. And also social media advertising. So I'm sure we have annoyed most people on this call through Instagram and Facebook, but that was always really big for us. But really the success came quickly. It was overwhelming and amazing, but it was really from our customers that really pushed us. So I always tell this story, so sorry if everyone's heard it before, but once we launched when there were a lot of Instagram brands that were coming out of China. So you saw something that you thought was from somewhere else and then you'd get your delivery from China. So we really wanted to tell our brand story, and someone posted on Instagram, this is from China, this is a Chinese brand. And we were really like, well, okay, well, no, we're not. And so we posted on Instagram a photo outside with all the girls standing in the office and at our window, which looked onto Elizabeth Street in the city in Melbourne, and a tram going past. And so we took that photo, we posted it, we're like, this is who we are, and then it was the customers that went, absolutely, I know where they are, I've seen that office, they are Australian, this is a great product, it's made in Australia, everything. So it was really, as we said, those arms of social media advertising, but also influencers. And then PR was very quick to follow with that and has always been extremely powerful in our promotion. But yeah, it was the customers that also told the story of the results, which really drove our sales.
That's great. And were those influencers and customers initially in Australia, or were they quite globally distributed from day one?
Yeah, our goal was to create a global brand, and it was quite funny because our experience with Bella Box was that Australians don't like Australian products. And so we had no idea that it would be big in Australia, and we didn't try for it to be big in Australia. It was important for us to have influencers with I've got a really horrible accent, so I'll blame myself, but with that Australian accent, we knew to tell the story that we needed Australians, but we more so went for those influencers that had great engagement, not necessarily that big audience, and they were, spread globally, obviously with a big focus on the UK and the US.
Well, it's interesting what you say about sort of, I guess, the Australian kind of sentiment there. I mean, one of my observations is often Australian consumers and Australians kind of love to adopt Australian brands or Australian figures who've made it overseas first, and then they're like, oh yeah, that's one of ours, and they kind of embrace it with open arms after they've made it big somewhere else. So did you find that actually succeeding in other markets like the UK actually had a sort of translated back into success here there in Victoria and Australia?
Definitely. Like once they could see that we were big elsewhere, then they really wanted to, it seemed like that they were coming on board. And even PR in Australia, we did it just like low touch, just thought, we'll just see how it goes. And yeah, it's amazing. We obviously all read international news sites, media sites. So it's something that it's easy for Australians to see, and to see that products are selling well overseas. And also, people go into Cult Beauty and then they see your brand there. Immediately they're like, oh my God, wait a minute, I can also get this in Australia. Like, how do I not know about it? So I agree. I think we also launched at a time that Australian influencers were getting bigger overseas. Australian fashion was becoming, something that was sort of sending a really beautiful message, and something that people were starting to take seriously. Even Australian design is something that, people have talked to me about as well, that came, sort of came to its own during our all around our launch. So it worked very well for us. We were lucky to launch when we did.
So you got the digital strategy in place, you got some fantastic early responses from initial consumers, you put your PR in place by the sound of things as well. And then I'm presuming you had to put in place partnerships with platforms. We've heard from Cult Beauty today, which you sell on. You've mentioned you sell on Amazon. How did you initially go about putting those partnerships in place? And what advice would you give companies that are seeking to approach and sell on those platforms, particularly in the UK?
So the funny thing, and I'm glad that Stacey was saying that Cult Beauty, you answer all your emails. We launched in April, and my sister said to me, okay, now we've decided, because we were digitally, like, we wanted to be our own brand, our own website. And then, my sister woke up one day and she's like, no, of course we need to do retail. What were we thinking? And so I, for 2 weeks, contacted all of these retailers, and we were brand new. And one replied to me, Ulta in the US. No one else replied. And then all of a sudden, you know, a couple of weeks later or a month later, then we were being emailed. So wholesale at Sand and Sky. And the first one, interestingly, was Harrods in the UK. And I got this email and I was just like, oh my God, I tried to contact all these people and no one got back to me outside Ulta. And then all of a sudden it was just a snowball. So for us, for retail, and it might be different now, and this is obviously just one experience, but we found that you had to be noticed and the retailer had to come and contact you in order to, you know, be able to launch. So it was very hard to be, you know, proactive. We just didn't get any sort of doors being opened. In terms of Amazon, and you know, everything's a story, but we actually had a girl approach us who's amazing, and she said, you know, you need to be on Amazon. Can I come and work for you? Here's my strategy. So total cold email out of nowhere, and it now represents something like 15% of our business. So, and I think we were, you know, like everywhere, we're very big on reviews. We're very good on beautiful product images, you know, and we want the brand presentation to be equal on everything, equal with our retailers, equal with our website, and equal with Amazon. And that really helped for us. So we actually have an account manager in the UK with Amazon because of what we've been able to do in terms of our sales, and they're able to see the global figures. So we've been very lucky, and we have an account manager in India, and we have an account manager and just got one in the US, which took us a long time. But yes, I think by having someone who was so into Amazon, you know, we were scared of it. We were like, oh yeah, it's a bad experience. And we don't do discounting. We, you know, we're really careful about that. We participate in Prime Day, we participate in Black Friday, Cyber Monday, but we are not doing, you know, all of those promotions, even though they want us to. So yes, that's been our experience with retail and Amazon.
So you guys have had like a dream run. I'm sure there are lots of companies who are sitting on the call now going, oh, that sounds absolutely amazing. And it is absolutely amazing. You guys have obviously gotten that digital strategy right, and it helped you put the brand in place, get the demand very early and very quickly. But I know that once you get that demand, particularly if it does happen so rapidly, there must have been quite a lot of complexity and work on the back end in terms of logistics to make sure that you could fulfill all of this demand. So tell us a little bit about how that side of fulfillment looks.
Yeah. Our main issue has been selling out products, so not having enough product to keep selling. And so, yeah, I think our first 6 weeks, we sold 60,000 products or something like that. So really then it was negotiating with partners to try and overcome that. And like anything, it's your relationship. So our manufacturer, I would ring the director and just say, okay, we need more product. What can you do? Our packaging suppliers are in China. We have a good relationship with them. What can we do to shave the time? So really on the, you know, the product side of things, it was just about how we could negotiate our relationships to try and move it forward. You know, the interesting thing from a product point of view, we had an issue called Watergate, which was we just had a watery batch of our mask. And luckily it was only 20,000 units, but all of a sudden we had customers complaining. And the thing is, with social media, your product has to look exactly the same every single time, otherwise people complain. And so we literally then had to go and try and find these units, pull them back, and then, you know, and then recover from that. And that was really hard for us. Like that was, once we looked into the formula, we realized that the range variance that we allowed and we'd signed off on had too much water, and that wasn't the plan. That's not what we signed off on. So we've had little things like that has been really hard at the time, but when you step back, it's made it easier, if, you know, because we make sure now we have enough controls in place so that doesn't happen. And also we talk to our manufacturers and say, you know, it's not always just selling on a shelf. Someone on social media is going to tell us if they don't like the product and it looks different from the last batch that they've bought. Sort of logistically, we set up, we work with a third-party warehouse in just outside London, and we did that right from the start. So we wanted a global presence. Shipping from Australia to the rest of the world is absolutely horrible. So we bulk ship into now, and we just signed a deal with a Spanish warehouse in preparation for Brexit. So we bulk ship into the US, Canada, the UK, EU from, I think next week we're doing it. And then Australia and Singapore. So that just allows us to ship to customers as fast as possible, because as Stacey has said, you know, people are extremely impatient. Your customer experience, customer service needs to be really good. So that's, you know, and I find that part actually really interesting. But it's not the, it's not the fun part of the role, but it is super important. And we're always thinking about how we can improve, sort of shipping times for the customer. So there's some of the challenges. There's been more.
But as I say, it's sort of the cost of success, the cost of runaway success. So really interesting to hear your point around social media and this kind of immediate feedback you get if things aren't right. I suppose that's sort of a bit of a double-edged sword in relation to being very social media led, is if you don't have that consistency, if there is a problem, it can light up the Twitterverse, or it can light up social media. But we've got a question here around your digital strategy and the use of micro-influencers that you mentioned earlier. They ask, Sarah, did you find that micro-influencers provided better results in terms of brand promotion compared to macro or celebrity influencers?
Yes, we haven't ever really gone too big, because I think the most we've paid someone for a post is 40,000 USD. I think that's our biggest. And obviously, the Kim Kardashians, I think she's 500 grand. So no, yes, we saw better results from micro. And for us, it's never been about likes, it's about engagement. So one thing we did really early is that we saw that people doing makeup tutorials had massive engagement. So they do a video, they've got 1,000 followers, people watch it to the end, everyone's leaving comments. So we just said, okay, well, can you please put the mask on before you start your makeup tutorial? So we're at the start of this video that everyone's going to watch. It provides a good base, not so great if you put heaps and heaps of makeup on after a mask that's cleared your skin, but anyway, and that for us just worked. So we've always looked at, okay, what else is trending that we can be involved in? So you're not just getting them to do a post just about you, it's also about how they normally engage with their audience. And we've just found if we've gone too big, we have a few people that are inspired by our brand. So we often feel like too, if we go to the really big influencers, and we have we have all these deals in place, but they'll wait till their 3 months is over and then promote the other brand that saw what you were doing and basically copy it. We find with micro influencers that they've got more of a, I don't want to say more of a responsibility, well, that's what I'm going to say, but to their audience, and they're not chopping and changing so much with the brands that they use and the brands that they promote. So that's why we sort of keep with that world. We do now a gifting program. So they're the micro influencers, and that's when they're not getting paid. And that's been really interesting for us to almost test out different areas that we think are doing well and that we should, invest in. And it's almost we're investing through that gifting. And once we see the results, then we sort of push through to that new sort of trend.
Yeah, I think it speaks to brand authenticity, really, doesn't it? Having micro influencers as opposed to celebrity influencers. And I know, in the world of beauty obsessives, actually an endorsement from someone within that world who's genuinely saying, actually, this is a great product. I'm not Kim Kardashian, but I am obsessed with skincare and this is it, is actually going to be incredibly credible and compelling for other consumers.
It's funny, we got one video with BuzzFeed. So they've got a group of girls called Ladylike, and the point is they're not ladylike, and they're really real, and they did the mask, and that was probably one of the biggest sales drivers we've had of just like general, non-seeded PR. They bought the mask because they saw it on Instagram, and they were real. They're real people. So I think that's what sometimes you lose with some celebrities, not all, but it's real people talking about something that they then want to use forever, which is the most important for us.
Absolutely. Sarah, I have so many more questions to ask you, but we are coming up to time. In fact, we're just over time. We started a couple of minutes late, so I'm just taking us a couple of minutes over the hour. But I'm going to close off the session with one more question, which we've received from the audience, which is, what advice would you give yourself if you could go back to when you were first launching Sand and Sky?
One of the good things we did do was compliance. So we did do EU compliance as part of our launch. I think the advice is to kind of be naive and see where it takes you. Like, as I said, with retail, all of a sudden we were like, okay, cool, this is what we're doing. Amazon, okay, fine. I don't know, we knew what we wanted to do with the brand, and it was just making sure that we took those opportunities as they came. So I don't know what I would change so much. Probably make more products. That would be one, because we made one product and then it went crazy, and it took us a long time to get our product development process up and running to the point where it is now. So yes, that would be it. Like, have a few more products in the pipeline before you launch, not just one.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, thank you so much, Sarah. It's been such a delight to chat with you. And as I say, I wish we could keep going, but we are on the hour. So I will regretfully need to bring this session to a close. But thank you so much to you and to our other two wonderful speakers, Stacia and Gilly, for sharing your time and insights with us so generously today. I know time is precious for all three of you, so really appreciate you making the time today. And thank you again to Tim Dillon and the team at Global Victoria and the Agent General's Office in the UK for your partnership, as well as our chamber team, and particularly Kylie and Jan for your wonderful work behind the scenes to make today possible. Finally, thanks very much to each of our guests for logging in today. It was great to have you, and we wish you a great day ahead. Thanks, guys.